This is a broad introduction to the political thought of Nathaniel Hawthorne. Nathaniel Hawthorne wrote in the mid-1800s and was one of America's first great novelists. He is primarily known these days for the Scarlet Letter, yet he has three other novels, two of which, in my view, are great novels as well: The Blithedale Romance and The House of the Seven Gables. If there is less action in Nathaniel Hawthorne's novels, they are psychologically interesting and a profound commentary on America's past and future. We should look at all these novels to see what Hawthorne is up to. Generally, Hawthorne explores the issue of human nature and the characteristics of human nature that resist the accomplishment of social order or living together in peace and happiness. Without identifying the natural psychological barriers to the accomplishment of peaceful living together, we cannot figure out how civil society should be organized to remedy or mitigate the natural faults to which human beings are particularly vulnerable. Some of these potentially antisocial passions include sexual passions, conflict over a lover perhaps, or the desire for property, conflict over who gets what, intellectual inequalities, and the hope to overcome the problems of the present, leading to the utopias that do not recognize the permanent features of human nature. These are some of the elements in human nature that, Hawthorne seems to say, are inconsistent with decent civil society, and yet are ineradicable parts of human nature. Best to face up to it and manage them than to dream of overcoming them. Hawthorne's novels explore each of these issues with stunning depth and clarity. Let us pause to consider The Scarlet Letter and The Blithedale Romance, a critique of America's past and a critique of America's future. First, The Scarlet Letter. There are many famous aspects to this novel, including the big A, the adultery of Hester Prynne, the heroine. Nevertheless, the first words of the novel refer to the constant problems of human nature. The Puritans represent a human urge, and an especially American urge, to start anew, to wipe the slate of the world clean and start over, so that the problems of the past can be flushed down the memory hole. The Puritans were going to build a new community, united by charitable love, and institutions there would make that love real. The Puritans wanted a pure community, a pure church. They aimed at purifying the whole of the human character, body and soul. All sins, think adultery first, but also think unbelief. All sins were crimes, and the law came to reflect a strict reading of Christian morality, the Old Testament do's and don'ts. Hawthorne comments immediately on the possibility of success in such a community. At the beginning of the novel, he writes, "The founders of a new colony, whatever utopia of human virtue and happiness they might originally project, have invariably recognized it among their earliest practical necessities to allot a portion of the virgin soil as a cemetery and another portion as the site of a prison. Death and crime. These are the constants in human community. Each causes disorder and points to the limits of our ability to control the future. The Puritans are remarkable instances of this because they define crime so rigorously, including what can be called private crimes or crimes of the mind in their definition. Puritans hope to build a community of believers, and they are forced to control all aspects of human life in their efforts to do so. They destroy the private realm, and hence succeed in shaping a community of heartless, unsympathetic, grim Puritans. This comes out famously in the Scarlet Letter through Hawthorne's sympathetic treatment of Hester Prynne's adulterous relationship with Reverend Dimmesdale. Prynne has a baby without being married, suggesting, and I don't want to draw a picture here, that she has had sex with someone outside of marriage. The man, one of the heads of the Puritan community, Reverend Dimmesdale, stays in the shadows and refuses to own up to his role. He is the first deadbeat dad. He is a hypocrite, and he knows it. Hypocrisy keeps him in the community, however, while Hester, showing, is ostracized and forced to wear the scarlet A around her neck. Dimmesdale notices the nobility of his lover living outside the bonds of community, and finally and truly confesses his sin. And afterward, immediately afterward, he collapses dead. Hawthorne's point here, if I can oversimplify, is that the Puritans trusted in human institutions to save them, rather than in God's mercy. And hence they trusted things that reflected human pride and human jealousy. These institutions that they trusted in reflected human sin, even as they tried to eradicate human sin. Hester seems to understand all of this, so she bears her ostracism with equanimity. She would love to run away with Dimmesdale, but he is not enough of a man to run with her. He is linked to the community. Perhaps she could be free if she could initiate a great feminist revolution. This she understands too, and she thinks it is folly. She discerns, Hawthorne writes of Hester, such a hopeless task before her. As a first step, the whole system of society is to be torn down and built anew. Then the very nature of the opposite sex, or its long hereditary habit, which has become like nature, is to be essentially modified before women can be allowed to assume what seems to be a fair and suitable position. This still would not be enough, for the last frontier of social change would require a complete revolution in the womanly character. The vanquishment of her emotional and spiritual essence will be necessary. Hawthorne's Hester Prynne, in other words, recognizes natural sex differences in a traditional way, just like the Puritans, and does not think they can be eradicated, just like the Puritans. Men are more centered on the head, women on the heart. These facts make life between the two more worth living. The problem with the Puritans is that they too much try to control the heart and the head, and hence make the joining of man and woman joyless and grim. Much could be said of any effort today, Hawthorne suggests, or of reducing the complementary nature of the sexes. A new Puritanism would be as bad as the old, for both would ignore the private nature of human happiness and overestimate the objectivity, justice, and efficacy of man-made institutions. The Blithedale romance is a fantastic, somewhat secular version of the same theme. It concerns the creation of a utopian community. A group of reformers or dreamers believe that all human problems are caused by the inequalities and competition in American society. The solution, then, obvious to them, is to withdraw from society and create one without the restraints that one currently observes. Let human nature bloom, and people will not be selfish or competitive. These vices, they believe, come from artificial social conventions. Isn't that why Puritanism eventually failed after all? Or so the reformers reason, and there is an element of truth here. Hawthorne shows, however, that social conventions are necessary, but that the Puritans had the wrong ones. The Blithedalers experience a species of tyranny and oppression based on utopian hopes, and their tyranny is every bit as sinister as the Puritan. When people act on the basis of their natural desires, it is not peace and harmony, but rather the immoral use of others as means to our ends that we get. This is true in matters of love and in matters of property. The Blithedale reformers hope that people will love one another and live together in harmony if we would but destroy all social and economic differences. Peace, love, and dope. Or one might say, but let's scratch the dope. Suffice it to say that the action of the novel proves that love can bring people together, but it also sets them apart. It is an exclusive passion and leads to the desire for exclusive relationships. The more meaningful the love, the deeper the attachment, the less it fosters social unity in any direct way. In fact, if there are assumptions about the openness of relationships, the closedness of them becomes a source of social conflict. It is eventually this conflict that rips apart this utopian community of Blithedale. It is through the character of Zenobia that Hawthorne conveys the essence of his teaching in this respect. Zenobia is a magnetic woman, sensual and visionary, the real force behind the creation of the utopian community. Her visions are unconstrained, and she lives without the artificial barriers of the outside world, very promising for a lover. Yet when her lover becomes taken with Priscilla, her sister, Zenobia destroys her sister. And this shows the folly of the belief that artificial institutions cause human problems. Humans cause human problems, and it will always be thus. There are countless other examples of this in this novel. The faults in the Blithedale experiment point to the need for an institution that the reformers wish to abolish, family and marriage. Marriage helps human beings realize the desire for passionate unions enduring with another. It's something infinitely deeper than the physical level. Difference is not artificial only, and marriage builds on the natural differences and complementary nature of the sexes. It does not eliminate human sin or fault, but it builds on them and remedies them. Marriage is a hospital, not a prison, and the patients are more likely to get well there. This, in essence, is the theme of The House of the Seven Gables. Unlike the pretty tragic novels of the Scarlet Letter and Blithedale romance, Seven Gables ends with a marriage. Each partner needs to be educated to that marriage, and that education consists in overcoming the faults so characteristic of human nature. So, insofar as Hawthorne has a project as a novelist, The House of the Seven Gables reveals its resolution. Let us now turn to that novel.